There is nothing worse than untapped potentials. If you know that you're made for more, this is the place. I know that every successful person I've ever met has one thing in common. They do not let themselves fall victim to their circumstances. They figure out a way to rise above it. So join me on this journey where I help you to be better, do better, and have better in life and in business. If you're feeling stuck and you're needing some practical tools, some hope to get you to that better life, this is definitely the place for you. Oh my gosh, you guys, welcome to the Unstuck Podcast. And today I get a chance to interview my friend, Dana Kaplan. Girl, you are such an inspiration to me. The two of us have so much fun when we're chatting. And I'm like, okay, I need to let other people into our conversations because they're so just filled with energy. I love everything that you're doing. And I'm so grateful that you're here today. So thanks for being on the show.
Thank you for having me. I love the intro to this.
Okay.
I love the visuals. I love the words.
Yay, it's all about what we're about, right?
Yeah.
Okay, so
it's like getting out of your own way.
Yeah, so speaking of that, so you are a child specialist, right? That specializes.
I am.
Yeah, tell me, I mess it up. Tell me all of the things. Tell me all the things that you're doing in the world.
You didn't mess anything up. You messed nothing up. I am an early childhood expert focusing in on social emotional learning and intelligence, and I am pioneering from the womb, specifically third trimesters with parents, into the 12th grade around diversity, equity, inclusion, access, and belonging in action. And the reason that while I work with everyone at all ages, my focal point really is in utero to 12th grade because we're not having hard conversations with children these days. We're not allowing them to use their voice. We're not even inviting them to use their voice in the way that we can. And so the more hard conversations and the more difficult answers, right, that we continue to bring up and to marinate over, the more we listen to learn instead of listening to talk, the more we can actually engage in other people. Like, it's a beautiful to watch children unfold through the power of their own voice. It's literally unstoppable. And it's literally takes people from being in that stuck position to thriving. And so that's really everything I do is all around the power of our voice and knowing who we are at the core, from self-awareness. And it doesn't matter where you are academically. If you don't know who you are at the core, these grades will never do anything for you. And so it's all about who you are as a human.
I love that. And I love how you specialize in emotional intelligence, because when I was on faculty and teaching, one of the things that I looked for when I admitted our graduate students was emotional intelligence. I could teach them the academia, as long as, they can read and write and have some, underlying basic intelligence, but it's really the emotional intelligence that tells me, are they going to be an ideal team player? Are they going to be coachable? Are they going to have enough self-awareness to be able to reflect upon and learn from their mistakes and to know when to speak up and how to speak up and interact with other people? I love the topic of emotional intelligence so much that I just could nerd out about that all day long, to be honest with you.
Oh, I totally can too. And, it's so interesting because emotional intelligence has always been a thing for me, but I didn't know it was a thing,
yeah.
Meaning like I didn't, we didn't talk about it. Mm-hmm. And so I remember being in grad school and I was doing a lesson and my mentor teacher and also my observational coach came in and they're like, "You're not following the lesson plan." And I was like, "You're right. I'm not. It doesn't hit what these kids need right now. Have you looked around to read their body language? Number one, they don't even know what I'm talking about. Number two, they're disinterested. And number three, they're like completely disengaged. Why am I going to follow some mundane lesson plan? This isn't who I am. This isn't why I'm going into education. I need to stop. I need to pay attention to them. I need to figure out what's the disconnect. What am I failing at? Because they're not failing. They don't even know what they're doing right now. So there's no way they failed. I'm the failure because I'm not checking in with them, right?" And so I remember I got a B in that class. And who gets a B in student teaching? And I was like, you know what? I really don't care because I was authentic to myself. Yeah. I was authentic to the kids. And I said to them, I was like, listen, if this does not really shine a light on the fact of how unnecessary grades can be in our world, because what I really needed to be graded on, it was dismissed. right? And I talked to kids about that. Like, what I really needed to be watched for was the fact that I was paying attention to every single one of you.
Mm-hmm.
And I was paying attention to the fact that either the topic was too hard, or you weren't interested in it, or you really didn't even know what I was talking about because you forgot to have your lunch, right? Like, there are so many variables going on. And if we don't have that internal self-awareness, we are missing the mark. So yeah, it doesn't matter if you can write a paper. It doesn't matter if you're going to be number one in your class. It's how are you engaging with other people? How are you collaborating? How are you listening? How are you, pausing? Like, the act of stopping to pause. It's like there's so many different pieces in our life, and we're rushing all the time.
Right.
But if we don't teach children now,
Right.
and if parents don't choose to stop and pause, especially now after the pandemic, especially now after we all have new choices that we get to make, it's again, we're not helping, and we're hindering the problem that consistently exists.
You are obviously super passionate about what you're doing. You're very well spoken, and you're doing a great job using your voice. So Dana, I just have to ask you, like, have you always been this perfect? Like, have things always gone so bad?
Okay, first of all, I'm the most perfectly imperfect. I am the most perfectly imperfect person in the world. It's really interesting. So I went into education because I've always wanted to, I don't know, there was just something about, I didn't feel like I ever belonged anywhere. Being a Jewish girl from the Deep South, bordering Alabama, growing up in Georgia where, there were so many racial divisions, and people also had religious divisions. And, it was very easy for people to look at me and say white privilege, but it wasn't the truth. The amount of derogatory statements and the amount of times that, people either took my backpack and threw it around, or the microaggressions that happen in our life. And I realized that teachers don't know how to work with that. They don't know what to do. It's scary. We want to be like, no, just go sit in your seat, or, oh, go have a timeout. But really and truly, that timeout is really a time in, to go internally, to go inside yourself and figure out what's happening. And it took me a very long time to discover that my learning is different. I am a kinesthetic, visual, oral learner all into one, like playing games and writing all at the same time. Lo and behold, I have ADHD, wasn't diagnosed until 3 years ago. And, to be told that you have to take a test to get into a program, where I clearly wanted to be an educator, but I didn't do well on the test, right? There are so many hurdles that I kept having to go through. And every time I was told no, it just fueled me to want to get the yes, right? Like, I don't like to be right. I actually tell all of my friends and all my clients, I hate being right, because if I'm being right, that means that somebody just chose not to listen. Somebody chose not to do. Somebody chose to stay in that box that is constructed by society. And so my yes is always pushing the envelope. My yes is always getting others to push the envelope, because I don't know how we're ever going to make this world the space that is equitable and accessible and inclusive, and where no one ever questions their belonging. And we do it actively on a daily basis without standing up and playing in the arena. Like, I have to. And it has not been easy. I've lost a lot of friends. When I started my business, there was jealousy, and I don't know how to operate around jealousy. It's very hurtful. I know that, my parents are beautiful humans. They do not understand, like, why did I leave the classroom and go out and do this on my own? My dad recently just said to me, actually 2 weeks ago, he's like, you're the master of your own destiny. And it didn't saturate. Like, I heard it, but it was like, did he really just say that to me? And then he said it again. And I remember, I was like, it was on a Sunday. It was August 1st. I was standing in the grocery store, and I was like, oh my God, my dad finally gets it. He finally gets it. I will always be the master of my own destiny, because no one gets to say no to me. I only get to say no, right? And I think that for the longest time, being a female and having society's pressures on us, and knowing that my journey has barely begun, right? I see so many beautiful opportunities for today's children and families and corporations, where we are no longer, the children that are coming up today will no longer have to worry about not being able to speak up to their boss, right? That they'll be actively saying, you know what, I have an idea to bring to the table. It is my idea. I want to present my idea. I want everyone's feedback, and let's see how it unfolds, right? And to be able to support and guide and propel kids to do that, because I didn't have that, is so important to me. So yes, I am very passionate, and yes, this has not been easy. And yes, I will never, ever, ever stop.
So what made you decide to take that leap? Like, I know that you kind of given us, but was there like a day, or was it like just over time and then you finally had the courage? Like, tell me a little bit about that process that you went from being in the classroom and recognizing like, hey, I'm seeing the kind of same things that I experienced when I was young, and I want something different and better for our next generation, is what it sounds like. So how did that process go for you to go from the realization to I'm going to actually do something about it? Because not very many people do. We have this idea, right? And we just let it sit there, or we might talk about it over coffee with a friend, but it never goes anywhere, or we might never bring it up to anybody ever. So I want to hear about that.
It's a great question. So I used to tutor kids so I started the Gifted and Talented program at my elementary school in New York City. And it took the school from being a Title I school to the most diverse school in all of Manhattan right now, because it has kids coming in from upper middle class, lower class, from the projects all over. So that superficially, it's the most diverse. But it lacks a lot of inclusionary options, right? And it lacks a lot of accessibility, and the sense of belonging is still a question, right? And so as I continue to shift and as I continue to grow as an educator, I also saw that we have to make sure that opportunities are given to everyone. And when opportunities are given to everyone and educators choose not to do anything with those opportunities, the kids are losing. So what I discovered was that I would have kids come into my class in kindergarten through data that I collected for over 15 years. Kids would come into my class in kindergarten. I would get them, and this is in gen ed also, I would get them and barely writing their names, numbers, letters, exactly what they're supposed to be coming into kindergarten, ready just to play all the time. And I would get them, depending on where they were developmentally, to get them to a space where they could easily be a grade to 4 grades ahead of where they were, because they were so powerfully invested in themselves. And it starts with really showing up, looking at their parents and saying, hey, I'm so tired tonight. I'm not doing my homework. I will tell Dana tomorrow, but I'm letting you know tonight I'm not doing my homework, and I'll have to do more tomorrow. Or I see that I have this project due. I have 3 soccer games this week. We have to block off time. And if the parents are like, well, I have work functions, then the kid comes to me and says, can you help me? Can you help me do some of this at school? Because I don't know how to do it all by myself, right? It's really empowering the kids to ask for what they need so that they can thrive. And what I discovered was by the time they left me in kindergarten, first grade, they were still thriving, but there was something being kind of etched away from them. And the more they tried to use their voice in the way that they had been, by the time they got to the 3rd grade, the strength and conviction was not there anymore. And I was like, what is this? What is this, right? And what I discovered is that not only is intentionally committing to emotional intelligence and infusing it organically into teaching seamless for me, it also can be very daunting for others, because, from an outside perspective, it's like, well, you have to do one more thing, but it's not. It's literally picking up a picture book and having a conversation around what's happening in the images, right? It's not even reading the words. So what I discovered was that no one wanted to take that step necessary to bridge their own gaps in their classroom. And so I would continuously work towards gaining resources and grants and things for the school that I was at. But I finally looked out and said something else has to change, because too many kids are falling between the cracks. Too many kids are not getting what they need. Too many parents are angry. Too many of this. Like, I'm a problem solver. So when I knew I was leaving the classroom, I didn't know what I was going to be doing, though, when I left the classroom. I knew it was still going to be around education. I volunteered at the hospital just to, get my head, out of the classroom, but still being around families. And I loved it. I was able to still do what I wanted to do, but without the restrictions of the political arena. And what I also realized too is that we are always going to hear no when people are too scared to try. And so for me, like I said earlier, yes is my fuel. So if I hear no, it's just fueling me towards my yes even more. And the more I heard, we don't have the money for that, or we're already doing that. And, I was like, this is my time. And ironically, COVID hit right when I launched. So that was a really fun experience too. So the whole experience was even bigger and bolder than what I could have ever imagined, because the whole world was experiencing this massive shift.
Yes.
And so it could have been very easy for me. And I had many people say, like, you're just going to take a year off and come back to the classroom. You will never do, like, and I was like, no, you don't understand. I have bigger dreams, like bigger images in my head that are growing. Like, I used to say that every year the school year started with a blank canvas.
Yeah.
And I've been around water so much that now I say every day is as big as the ocean. It's not the beginning of the school year, it's a blank canvas. And it is because we have the choice, we have the opportunities, and we can either shut doors on ourselves or open the doors up for ourselves so we can then open up doors for other people. And that is why I chose to take the risk.
I love that. Oh my gosh. Okay. So Dana, I want to hear all about, what tips and tricks that you have for all of us that are listening to you right now, and your passion and all of the things about using your voice. What can we do where we're at right now to start changing things for ourselves today? So you guys, I'm going to break for just a second so that we can share with you all of the exciting things that I have going on right now and to try to make your life better. And so we're going to be back here with Dana in just a moment. Hey, lachellewieme here, and I got to ask you, are you feeling like you're always on your freaking phone and you're trying to run your business, your family's complaining about you always being on your phone, you feel like you're winging it constantly, and all you want to do is have a strategy that lets you be 100% authentic, and you are literally attracting the right people to you? Oh my goodness, that was me too. And I had to figure out a system that would make that work. And I totally nailed it. I have a program all designed to help you do that too, including a chance to spend the entire day with me so I can help you write copy that attracts people, and you will literally be done for an entire year. If that sounds like it's something that you need, we totally need to talk. Go ahead and click this link and let's get started. Yeah. All right, you guys. Okay, Dana, girl, I want you to kind of help us to just, if we decide today we no longer want to feel stuck. Today we want to feel like the victim of whatever it is that we're going through. What can we do? How can you encourage us to move from where we are today to where we want to be?
I love your question, and I'm so excited about it. So there's a few things.
Okay.
So while my focus is with early childhood and to kids going off to college, my emphasis is still very much on all of humanity.
Yes.
I want kids to have a strong space, but I also know that, like myself, we grew up in different times and we all have different experiences. And so it's really important that adults do these practices too. So one of my favorite practices that I do, I actually learned this from my coach, is that I will write on my mirror, I am a warrior, and I will say it out loud. I am a rock star. And I would give my students pieces of paper and they would write, I am a rock star on it. And it was amazing because they knew it, right? They knew that they had the power to do it. So first, actually naming what you are. I am. Like that I am statement is so powerful. Yes. And looking yourself in the mirror is scary and vulnerable and so important, because as someone that used to compare herself to everyone around her, I was too scared to look at myself in the mirror, and I didn't want to see the beauty that I saw. And I just didn't. I never saw it. Right. And so it took me doing these practices of, I am a rock star. I am amazing. I am joyful, like looking at it and feeling it and seeing the radiation come out of me from saying these words. So that's the first step.
I wanted to say this real quick, you guys, is that it is normal, like Dana said, to feel uncomfortable in that space. My mom, I don't know if she listens to all the episodes or not, but I love her, but she refuses to have her picture taken still to this day because she doesn't want to have to look at herself. And so it's hard when you feel like that inside. It's really, really hard to look at yourself in the mirror. And it's really hard to tell yourself something that you don't believe at the time. And it's going to feel awkward and it's going to feel hard. But knowing that as you expect it, it's going to get easier, doesn't it? And all of a sudden you start believing it, don't you?
You do. And, it's interesting too, because my girlfriend took a picture of me last night. And of course, I was so quick to judge, right? And so the more that and I know that the reason I was so quick to judge is because I haven't been looking at myself in the mirror enough. And I haven't been saying all the greatness. And I also haven't been celebrating myself enough. Like a year ago, it's been 1 year since I launched my business. Like April's been a year, right? Yeah. And it's August. And so many brilliant relationships and ideas have come out that I haven't allowed myself to celebrate. So that's the second piece. Mm-hmm. The second piece is really celebrating. It's not bragging. It's celebrating.
Yes.
People want to hear your celebrations. If you don't share what you're doing, people don't know, and they don't know how to celebrate you. Yeah. So as soon as something amazing comes up, so it could be, I am leading a talk with 4 of my teammates today, and I'm really nervous, but I have something I want to share, and it's something I'm really passionate about, and I'm going to do it. Tell everyone. Let them know. I told my niece the other day, always brag to me. Always tell me all the great things that are happening. So she French braided my sister-in-law's hair and sent me a picture, and I was like, yes, I really want you to always send me your greatness. Always send it. She's like, I promise, I always will. And it's those little things. It can be anything from a French braid to a delicious banana bread to a talk in front of 5 people to an article in the Wall Street Journal. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. It's celebrate everything you're doing, because we are conditioned to look at all the things we're not doing.
Right. 100%. And the thing that I find that's so interesting, because we're talking about using your voice, right? That's what you're all about. And something has clicked with me. It's like, we're not going to be willing to use our voice to anyone else if we're not willing to hear our own voice and use our own voice in front of a mirror to ourselves. And I think that that's so interesting, is that I've studied, the brain. I think you have too. And the neuroplasticity, the ability to retrain our brain, works faster when we can have different sensory things happening at the same time. So when you say it, when you hear it, when you feel it with emotions, all of those things together work to make it stick faster and more efficiently and change those neural pathways. And so what you said was so important. And I think that I personally, I have there's one person in particular that I think of right now that I would say hey, I did this and I'm really proud of myself. I have a lot of really amazing people in my life that probably would be just really excited to celebrate with me. But for whatever reason, right, like you said, we're conditioned to not use our voice and to say hey, you guys, this is really scary and I am so stinking proud of myself and I just wanted to share. And I don't know, why is it so hard for us to do that?
Number one, I think it comes from conditioning, right? It's generational conditioning. Mm-hmm. It depends on what your parents experienced, what your grandparents experienced, and what they learned, right? And all coming down. I also think the other piece too is that we were taught that if we say something great about ourselves, we're bragging, we're being arrogant. And that's not real. Even the other day, I was talking to my best friend, my ride or die. We've known each other since the womb. She's 2 weeks older than I am. And I was telling her something amazing that's coming up, which I cannot wait, and I will share with you very soon. But an opportunity has come up, and I was like, isn't this so crazy? She goes, stop saying that. It's not crazy. Yeah. But even with all the work I do on myself, right? Even with all the work that I do with children and families, I still have so much work I have to do. And I'm not ashamed of it, because I think that's the other piece too, is that when we can release the shame of, oh God, I'm judging myself, or oh God, did I really just say that, right? It's actually, you know what? Thank you for bringing that to my attention. It's not crazy that this opportunity came into my plate. Of course they're going to call me. Of course, because I am a rock star at what I do. And they know it. They've seen it. They've heard it. And now they just want me to do it for more people.
Right.
In this way. So no, this isn't crazy. Yeah. This is just the world working in my favor. And so that's the difference. And, I have some adults that I've been working with lately, and a lot of them the shift around going back into the office, right? Like, healthcare workers were always expected. That was never a negotiation.
Right.
Except for therapists, right? Like those were the negotiating, like telehealth. But 90% of the doctors were like in there. And so when we now see the rest of society having the opportunity to make a choice, do I go in or do I stay home?
Right.
Do I stay where I currently am or do I move? Right.
Right.
And how am I going to share and show that I'm just as capable and just as successful and just as masterful at what I'm doing from whatever space I work in? And that is a really hard conversation to have, right? And so when I'm working with these adults, some have children, some do not, some are grandparents, right? Like the ages are really, they're wide. And so to have a conversation, to have that active communication, it starts with knowing and trusting your inner voice. Yeah. So that you can hear your voice, right? Yeah. And that's why mastering communication is so hard and so worth it. It is worth the effort. It is, if we can actually take the time to admit, you know what, I did not hear what you said. I'm off in my mind. I'm like thinking about, from a parent perspective, oh my God, wait, you just said something to me. And the child is like, Mom, why are you not listening to me? And it's like, oh my God, I'm so sorry. And actually authentically apologizing and saying, I'm so sorry. My brain was thinking about 4 things that I've got to get done before we go to your soccer game. And you're right. I'm not being present. Let me sit down. Let me get on your level. Let me be present with you. Yeah. Relationships, friend relationships, right? Yeah. You're on the phone with a friend and you're talking and all of a sudden they say something and it's that automatic pause that goes, so it's your turn to talk and you don't say anything. And then they're like, are you there? Are you there? And you're like, yeah, I'm here. And it's like, okay, well, what did you think? And it's like, oh my God, I'm so sorry. I was not listening. And owning that, and saying, I am really nervous because I have to have a conversation with my partner later about us going to see friends. And I'm a little nervous about going to see friends right now. And right? Like, it's at any age. It's at every age.
I love that so much. And
it doesn't matter what age we are.
Yeah. And, one of the things that you've said that has been, sticking with me is that it's almost, to me, it sounds like it comes down to that fear of rejection. It's like, we don't want to be braggadocious because we're going to be rejected by our peers. We don't want to be vulnerable because we're going to be rejected by our peers. And it's like, you can go back to celebrating things. I think that what you're trying to do in your mission is to make it the norm for the next generation. And I think that when we celebrate ourselves and when we're actively encouraging ourselves to celebrate other people, it's just a big celebration. So if I am only saying how great I am without ever acknowledging how great other people are, then that's braggadocious, right? But if I'm constantly like, oh my gosh, Dana, you're so amazing. And guess what I did too? That's totally different. And I think that
it's so different.
And I think too, one of the things that's helped me with that, because I had somebody in my family one time that said something really hurtful, and it really made me think of, like, I had to shrink down and I couldn't own who I was, if that makes any sense. And then I just had to just be okay with, no, like, I know where my heart is, and I want to show up in this way. And I had to recognize that as long as I don't own all of the things, but I truly believe that everything that I have going for me that's good is a gift for me, it's from God, right? Like, I believe that the strengths, the talents, the things that have gone well for me are a gift from Him. It's not all of me. That's where the humility can come in too. So there's a right way to do it to make it easier. And I think that, because I teach social media branding and strategy, so many people are afraid to do attraction marketing because they're afraid to come across as, oh, look at me, look at what things are going well with me, because they don't want to come across that way. But yet, like, if vulnerability
it's really interesting.
All of that is so good. Yeah.
Yeah, it's a really interesting arena to stand in. So one of the things, one of my most important actionable practices
Yeah.
that I instill in every person that I work with is when you apologize, be very sure, very clear on what you're apologizing for.
Mm-hmm.
When you compliment, be very clear on what that compliment is. So I'm sorry. It's never I'm sorry, right? It's I'm sorry that I stepped on your foot. I will watch out where I'm going next time. And the recipient's going to say, thank you so much for your apology. It's never, it's okay, right? And the reason you don't ever want to say it's okay is because if you say it's okay, you're discounting yourself. You're already saving some of yourself down.
Yes.
And you don't want to do that. You want to stand tall and say, thank you for acknowledging me. Thank you for realizing that you bumped into me. You know, my dad was telling me a story that he was at Costco the other week. And, you know, we have, well, first of all, as adults get older, you know, many take aspirin for circulation and to help with what, you know, and I don't know when that starts and whatever, but we also have a very hyper dog. So between my dog being who he is and, you know, and like bumping into my parents, like they have bruises on their arms. And then I was like, Dad, what happened to your arm? And he was like, when I was at Costco, this woman ran right into me. And I was like, and? He goes, I knew I had to say something, but I also chose to walk away as soon as I said, ma'am, you just bumped into me. I'm now bleeding. And she goes, well, I told you I was sorry. And my dad, which I was very proud of him, he was like, and just walked away. My dad, that's not normally who he is. Normally he would just like go off the handle. And what I said to him, I was like, Dad, if she had said, I'm sorry for bumping into you, or I'm sorry, I see that you're bleeding, or I'm sorry, you know, fill in the blank, that's an authentic apology. And I know that you're angry, and I'm very proud of how you stepped away from the situation because that is huge, right?
Yeah.
But it's also a moment. It's a moment when we as a society have to stop and say, my life is not more important than someone else's. I just bumped into someone, right? And I'm the queen bee to tell you, traffic is not my thing. I do not like traffic. It bothers me. Sitting still bothers me. I'm like, I could be doing so much more with my time. But the reality is this, if we don't stop and pay attention to what's happening around us, then life is going to pass us by. And it's the same thing with compliments, right? Kids are so used to seeing or hearing, great job, awesome, you're so fabulous. What are you fabulous at? What are you doing a great job at, right? You've got to fill it in. I love that you just wrote me this letter while I was doing my podcast because you know how much it means to me when you keep our boundary and keep our promise and you don't interrupt me. Thank you. That was amazing, amazing listening and amazing.
You guys that are listening to this can't see this, but my kids, they just know that they're not supposed to interrupt when I'm recording. And so they left me this little note they're trying to write down, like, Mom, how long do we keep the dinner in the oven? Like, it's so stinking cute. But yeah, so thank you for helping me to know how to talk to them and acknowledge, like, that was really meant a lot that you know, so.
They're honoring you, right? And like, that's a big celebration. Like you get to say, oh my God, that was so awesome that you wrote me the letter instead of tapping on my shoulder because you know how important speaking with other people and using my voice and helping get other people out of their own way, right? And you got out of your own way by writing me a letter, right? It's like those little moments. And so I think the more that we can do that at all ages and really honor the fact that I'm completely the most imperfectly perfect human. And I need to ask for help. And I'm not going to always get it right, but I'm always going to try. And most importantly, failure is only when you don't try.
Yes.
You know, it's like, we use that word fail all the time.
Right.
Like, oh my God, you failed at that. But you only fail when you don't show up.
Right.
You only fail when you don't try. And so the whole perception, again, communication is language. And language, of course, is a culmination of words and sounds and meaning, right?
Yeah.
And so we get to pick and choose where we put our meaning. You know, everyone is going to hear the word failure as I say that, and it's probably going to do something internally to them. Did somebody call you a failure?
Right.
Did you feel like you were a failure? Right. Did you think you failed? Like, for whatever it is, right? And so now's the time where all of your listeners get to say, I'm going to make a new choice of how I perceive the concept of failure and failing.
Right.
Because all it is just not showing up.
Yes.
And when I choose to show up, anything's possible.
Right.
End of story. So so that's when we talk about communication, when we talk about having these hard conversations, that's really, That's why it's so important at all the ages.
Oh my gosh. I've learned so much from you, and I literally know, I mean, because we talk, and I know that I can spend the whole day with you. Like, I just need to, go to New York so we can hang out. So is there anything else, Dana, that we haven't had a chance to touch on that you really want to share with our audience today before we wrap this up? Because I just love what you're doing and how you're trying to literally change the next generation to have their voice. Anything else that you want to bless us with before we part?
Thank you. I think I really want to encourage all of your listeners to make a list of how you want and what you want in your life right now. The pandemic happened for a myriad of reasons.
Right.
And I'm a big believer that now is our opportunity to create the life that we really want, and to invite people into our space that we really want, and to say goodbye to people that we don't really want and that don't serve us. And it also means, making sure that you're asking, if you feel rushed to the doctor, like you ask your doctor the question again, if you feel like you're not being heard. If, when you go to the grocery store, if you ask for a half a pound and you end up getting a pound and you're like, but I don't want that. It's like really using your voice and really being very, very, very clear on what you personally want for yourself, for your nuclear family, and then also for the expansion around everyone else around you. Yeah. Because at the end of the day, I am a firm believer that society had shackled us into moving and being the way society had wanted us to for so long.
Right.
And I don't think that we were given ever an opportunity to make those choices on our own. And so I think if there's anything, it's really to encourage everyone at all ages and to ask everyone around you, right? Your teams, your partner, your family, like, is this something you really want to do, or are you doing this because you think you have to? And making those distinctions are going to shift how you show up in the world.
Yeah. So I love that. And, you don't even know this, but I ask my guests every single time that, can you give us a coaching question to consider? To help us move forward from where we are now to where we want to go. So that just tells you that we're in sync, girlfriend. So you guys listen to Dana and just, ask yourself. I love that. I love acknowledging that, not only for yourself, but for the people around you. Like, is this really what you want to do? And give ourselves and others the permission to be honest and vulnerable and use our voice. I love that so much. Dana, I'm going to make sure that everybody has all of the ways to get a hold of you, to follow you, all of the things in the show notes so that people can fall in love with you as much as I have. Thank you so much for sharing your heart today, your vulnerability today, and your wisdom. And you have been such a blessing.
I cannot wait to see you again. We're going to make this happen again. You're amazing. And to everyone listening, you guys have a gift. You guys have a massive gift on your hands. Thank you for having me.
Thanks, honey. Thank you so much for listening to the Unstuck Podcast. I'm so grateful to be on this journey with you. And don't forget to check out the show notes if you want to get into my private club, the Better Club, to be able to learn better ways to be better, do better, and have better. So until next time, keep showing up. Let's get unstuck together. Have a great day.